Good evening. Welcome to the Falls Township Board of Supervisors meeting for March 19th, 2019. We are going to begin with the salute to the flag. Following that, I'm going to ask if everyone here present would remain standing for a moment of silence for the victims of the terror attacks in New Zealand and the Netherlands.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Pullen, take a roll, please.
Mr. Galloway?
Here.
Mr. Grasky?
Here.
Mr. Harvey?
Here.
Mr. Dent?
Here.
Mr. Rocco?
Here.
Okay. Frequent visitors to our meeting will notice we did do a little bit of shuffling of our normal agenda. We do have some properties, some business owners that they have applications before us. And at our last meeting, we had quite a few who were essentially spending money on their staff to sit and wait till their turn and costing themselves money. So we're going to go through those first. We're also going to have a police department report, which is typically later in our agenda. Our chief is actually going to be heading out this evening to a conference. He asked if he might be able to go early so that he could get on the road and get to where he needed to go as fast as possible. So we're going to have him go, and then we'll get to our public comment. We did have an executive session before our meeting this evening. Ms. Gallagher, can you fill us in, please?
Thank you, Mr. Harvey. The board did meet in executive session this evening to discuss various items involving personnel.
Okay, thank you. And I do see some individuals standing on the side. The easels there are going to have to be set up at some point, so you might kind of be in the way a little, just so you know. First item on the agenda is the Milex Properties LLC final land development. This is 300 West Trenton Avenue. Mr. Gray?
Yes, the applicant's proposed project consists of the construction of 4,800 square foot office building with garage spaces and associate parking, utilities, and stormwater management. Tonight, representing the applicant is Ms. Kristen Holmes.
Good evening.
Good evening.
As mentioned, the application we're here tonight is for Milex Properties LLC with the property located at 300 West Trenton Avenue. We were before the board, I believe a couple months ago, for preliminary land development approval. We're here tonight to request final land development approval. The plan for the proposed improvements has not changed since you have seen it as part of the preliminary land development. We have worked through some final comments with the staff, and what you see before you on the exhibits is, I believe, a similar plan to what you had seen previously. We had previously received a list of waivers from the subdivision and land development ordinance, and I don't know if it would make sense to go through them. There are no new waiver requests as part of the final land development application. We had also gone back to the Planning Commission for a recommendation for final land development, and there were some concerns in regards to the garages themselves, but the plan has not changed as part of preliminary. They remain intact. We had done a rendering to show what the proposed building would look like, to show that the proposed building will be similar in color and materials to the existing building, so that it is in kind with the neighborhood. If you'd like, should I go through the waivers that were previously granted?
Only a couple of them, sure. Thank you.
Sure. So Section 191-31A, we requested a waiver as part of preliminary from widening the right-of-way, cartway, and providing curb and sidewalk along the frontage of West Trenton Avenue. Section 36D, from requiring all driveways to have curbs, since this is existing driveways with an extension to the rear. Section 37B, requiring no less than 15 feet of open space between the curb line of any uncovered parking area, and this was for the loading space of the new building. Section 37G, requiring curbed raised planting beds for parking facilities. We have no curbing proposed along the backside of the parking area. And Section 78C2, which was a partial waiver from providing all existing features within 200 feet of the property, which we had satisfied with certain other aerials and so forth within the plans. We had also previously been before the zoning hearing board and received a variance, in regards to providing fewer parking spaces than required for the overall development. The plan, as I mentioned, we had gone before. We have received staff review letters. We have no further comments from the traffic engineer, and I've worked out the comments from the township engineer as well. The fire marshal we would, of course, address as part of the building permit application when the building plans are submitted. And then the application, we would certainly be subject to all outside agency approvals, which we have received for the project. If there are any questions in regards to the overall, we'd be happy to take those.
Okay, sure. Let's do board questions, if there are any. At this point, again, this is a final. We did see preliminary, as you said, about a month or so ago. Mr. Galloway?
No questions.
Mr. Boraski?
No questions.
Mr. Dents?
The additional parking space the Disabled Persons Advisory Board recommended, that was added?
Yes, so we were able to, as part of the request from the Planning Commission, they had asked that we distribute the parking space, the handicap parking spaces between the two buildings, and we were able to do that on the revised plan.
Okay, thank you, that's all.
Mr. Rocco?
I have no questions.
Okay. I had a question about the fire marshal's letter, but I'm assuming you've seen that?
Yes.
Okay. All right. That's a will comply.
It is.
Okay. Thank you. Is there any public comment on this particular agenda item? See no hands. Okay. Mr. Jones, anything from you?
No further comments.
Okay. All right. There was nothing else then. This is final land development for Milex Properties LLC, 300 West Trenton Avenue. Bless you. Is there a motion regarding this project?
So moved.
Oh, actually, excuse me. Yeah, sorry. This is actually resolution 19-9.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 19-9 for Milex Properties.
I will second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next item, Corco Chemical Corporation, amended final minor subdivision lot line change, Tyburn Road and Cedar Road. Mr. Gray?
Yes, the applicant's proposed improvements consist of a minor subdivision and lot line change between the two existing parcels. Representing the applicant tonight is Mr. John Koopman.
Yes, good evening, gentlemen. With me is Heath Dumack, who's the project engineer. You'll recall we were here last month where the board granted final lot line change approval for this minor subdivision. We're here tonight requesting that the approval be amended. It's a minor amendment. All we're doing is shifting the southern lot line down about 150 feet south on Cedar Lane. And Heath can show you where that is on the plan, and I'll try to show the audience. We're just moving the southern boundary lot line down about 150 feet. Other than that, everything remains the same. It doesn't affect compliance with ordinance requirements. And again, this is to create more flexibility for the development of that southern parcel if it ever takes place. Before it does, it'll obviously have to come back to you for review for land development and or subdivision.
Okay. All right. And most of the property, I think you're giving to the neighboring property.
KPK, yeah, that has not changed.
Yeah,
it's just the minor change in the boundary.
Water? Was it water, right? Isn't it, or is it land?
It's an old quarry pit.
Yeah, it's quarry pit. Yeah, that's what
Right.
I thought. Yeah. Okay. All right. So you basically did a lot line change a month ago. Now you're shifting the lot line change.
That's all we're doing.
Okay. All right.
It was 150 feet?
It's approximately 150 feet further south along Cedar Lane is the only change in the plan.
Just
And
more
again,
frontage.
it doesn't affect compliance with your requirements at all.
All right. Comments or questions from board members? Mr. Galloway?
No.
Mr. Brasky?
No.
Mr. Dents?
None.
Mr. Rocco?
I have none.
Mr. Jones?
No comments.
Okay. All right, is there any public comment? See no hands. Okay, this would be then Resolution 19-10, which is amended final minor subdivision. That might be the first time we've ever had a amended final minor subdivision. Lot line change. It's a new one, Mr. Dumack. You can put that on your resume.
That's not necessarily something you want to put in your resume.
Tyburn Road and Cedar Road. So this would be resolution, again, 19-10. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Seconded.
Okay, motion to approve resolution 19-10 made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
All right, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Your board.
Okay, next item on the agenda, item 3 is MLH. That's 150 Roebling Road, LLC. Amended final plan. Mr. Gray.
Yes, the applicant's proposed project consists of the construction of a 225-square-foot addition to connect 2 existing buildings for the growing and processing of medical marijuana, along with the associated stormwater management, utilities, and parking facilities. Representing the applicant tonight is Ms. Carrie Nace-Post.
Hi, good evening. My name's Carrie Nace. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Fox Rothschild, here this evening on behalf of the applicant, MLH Explorations. You may recall we've been here before this board on numerous occasions regarding this project. Also here with me this evening is David Clapper. He's a principal of MLH Explorations, as well as Bob Showalter, who's the engineer on the project. As you may recall, this property did receive special exception approval about 2 years ago to be used for a medical marijuana grow process facility. Just to give you a little bit of background as to where we were, where we are, and what we're looking to do in the future, real quickly. When we initially came in about 2 years ago, the application was a joint application with MLH Explorations and PharmaCann. Both applicants were proposing to use the property for a medical marijuana facility. We were going to demolish all of the buildings on this particular part of the property and construct 2 new buildings, which were about 50,000 square feet each. Unfortunately, PharmaCann was not granted a license. However, since that time, MLH has been able to maintain control of the property and continues to be the equitable owner under agreement of sale for it. MLH, you may recall, is actually looking to receive a clinical research license, which is different than the commercial license, and needs to be partnered with a research project. There was some litigation that was filed, which kind of delayed the issuance of some of the clinical research licenses. That since has been resolved. They recently reopened the application process the beginning of March of this year, and it closes the beginning of April. So we are in the process of putting that application together, and we'll be submitting again for the clinical research license. We are proposing, as you recall, to partner with Jefferson, and given the partnership with Jefferson, we do feel fairly confident that we will be granted this research license. But last year, when PharmaCann was not issued a license, we kind of had to look back at the property and see where we may be able to come up with some efficiencies. And if you may recall, at that time, we actually were here for amended plan approval, where we decided we were going to try to utilize 3 of the existing buildings on the property and construct a 3,000 square foot connector through all 3 of the buildings. And that's actually depicted on this plan.
Ms. Nate, you have to keep using the microphone. Yeah.
It's depicted on this plan in the top right corner here. Here's the 3 existing buildings, and this was the 3,000 square foot connector that we were proposing. Since that time, again, once the license is issued, we have 6 months to be up and running. So we tried to figure out, okay, that's a really short amount of time. What do we need to do to get in there and get up and running as quick as possible? So what we took a look at is what we're now proposing is to utilize 2 of the existing buildings, the existing control room building would be used for, kind of for operations, and then the storage and maintenance would actually be used more for a greenhouse facility at this time. So the application that's before you this evening is for a very small connector of only 225 square feet. To connect these two buildings. And we think that this is enough space just to get us up and running quickly. Obviously, it's going to take time to grow product and get things underway. But ultimately, we believe that we will need additional space to grow all the product that is necessary. And we're looking to come in the very near future for an additional 42,000 square foot greenhouse. We're actually in the process of putting those plans together and anticipate that we'll probably be here in maybe 2 to 3 months. But unfortunately, just because of the timing of when the license is issued and how quickly we need to get up and running, we needed to come in just for the small addition at this time. But did want to let you know, because we've always, had mentioned that we do want to invest in the township. There is job creation that we're looking to do. So we are committed to moving forward with the project and do ultimately plan on coming in with a larger scale development. But for the time being, due to the time constraints, we're just looking for the small 200 square foot. We did receive a review letter from the township engineer. All of the items in there will comply. We again are asking for several waivers. These are all of the same waivers that were actually previously granted. If you'd like, we can certainly run through them, but there are no new items that we are looking for relief on. We did review the project with Planning Commission last month. They did give a favorable recommendation to move forward. And certainly if you have any questions or things you'd like us to go through, we certainly will. Otherwise, we're asking for your approval on a amended final land development plan.
Okay. All right, yes, the waivers are
Right.
regarding parking and street trees and those kinds of things, which obviously is not necessarily something that's typically down there. So I don't think anybody has an issue with the waivers being read. All right, let's see if board has any comments or questions. Mr. Galloway.
No, it's straightforward. Thank you.
Mr. Boraski.
One quick thing. The greenhouse that you're referring to, is there enough room on that property for that to be built, or would you be looking for
the 42,000?
Yeah.
No, there is enough room.
Okay. And yeah, other than that, I just want to see you guys get going and good luck, because I know that property in particular has been vacant for a couple years now. So thanks.
Mr. Dents.
The top left is the one we already approved, right?
This is approved.
Right, and that's the amended one, is that small space, okay.
This is tonight.
Got ya.
This is probably in 2 or 3 months, hopefully.
Yeah, no, I have no other questions, thank you.
Mr. Rocco.
I have none.
Okay. The only questions I had were about a couple of questions about vehicle traffic. You have obviously going to be having vehicles going in and out overall through the site. What size vehicles we're looking at? What frequency?
Sure.
Clapper
I'm going to ask
probably
Mr.
has-
Clapper to answer those questions.
Fine.
Sure.
Make sure you speak in the microphone. That's
Yep,
Thank you.
sure. So for the most part, we'll have employee vehicles going in and out of the property on a daily basis, and then we'll also have certain deliveries. Most of the deliveries are things like fertilizer, growing materials, pots, that sort of thing for growing. Most of those are in box truck type things. Some of those may be in a tractor trailer, but those are the majority. We don't have a lot of outside visitors. We try to keep it a really secure property, so there's no dispensing happening here, so there's nobody coming in and purchasing. So it's really just the employees plus deliveries for supplies.
Okay. And the vehicles that are making deliveries won't be your vehicles. They'll be vendors who are coming to your site?
So we will have certain vehicles which will be taking our product. They're secured vehicles under the state mandate that'll be taking our product to our dispensaries. Those will be going in and out on a weekly basis. But then most of the other deliveries will be innocuous type things like the fertilizer, soil, things like that would not be our vehicles that'll be coming in from the outside.
All right. For the vehicles that are going to be yours leaving, have you established or thought about a truck route that you're going to have those vehicles travel? to try and keep them on sort of major highways and off some of the smaller roads?
We do. They are typically vans that have specifications per state regulations.
Okay.
Part of what you have to do is file your plan with the state in terms of what your routes will be. They're all GPS monitored, so they can and secured locked vaults in the trucks that have the material in it.
Sure.
Everything's prepackaged, so it's not any loose marijuana that would be in those. That all stays in. So yes, we will know exactly what the routes are. We've started to talk about where they are. Some of that depends on exactly where our dispensaries are located. Our first one that's in the process of being approved and built out is in Locust Street in Center City next to Jefferson's campus. So that's the first one. There's other ones that we're looking at in Montgomeryville or down in Concordville that would be other places. So we don't know exact routes until we establish where those dispensaries will be.
And all your dispensaries would be in Pennsylvania?
Correct. We will. That's from that perspective, we would never cross the river. Everything will stay in Pennsylvania.
Okay. All right, so it sounds like you'd be using mostly Tyburn Road to Route 13 to Route 1.
That's right. Onto the major highways. One of the reasons we like this location, like you said, it's close to Route 1, close to 95, and we'd be using major highways.
Okay. All right. Those are the only questions I had. Mr. Jones, anything from you?
No comments.
Okay. Is there any public comment? See no hands. Okay. This would be Resolution 1911. Which would be amended final plan for MLH 150 Roebling Road. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Good luck.
All right,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
See you in a couple months.
You have to sign the resolution.
All right, item 4 is Police Department report. We're going to have Chief Wilcox come up and give a report from his monthly report.
What we had discussed, and we're fine with that.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good evening. Thank you for allowing me to move up in the pecking order this evening. I appreciate it. What I have this evening is a series of investigations by our Detective Bureau. As a result of a tip from the Push Out the Pusher program, our detectives with the Bucks County Narcotics Strike Task Force conducted an extended investigation into delivery of narcotics in and around Falls Township. During the investigation, detectives conducted covert surveillance and watched the actor Christopher Neuber. As a result, we were able to enact search warrants at his home and his stash house. As a result, we obtained 2 illegal guns, $10,000 in assorted drugs, and $8,000 in cash. The drugs consisted of crack cocaine, powdered cocaine, methamphetamine, Suboxone, assorted other controlled substances. Mr. Neuber was arraigned and remanded in the Bucks County by the Bucks County Department of Corrections. Also, right now, our detectives are conducting a scam that's going through Falls Township in and around the areas. It has an acronym of BEC, Business Email Compromise. Criminal actors infiltrate the email system of a company through malware or social engineering. Actors registered spoofed emails, domains, and email accounts that look similar to the victims. Using these spoofed email addresses, criminal actors send fraudulent wire instructions to redirect wire transfers to fraudulent controlled bank account. At least one township resident has fell victim to this. And another victim was in our finance department, and a sharp person in our finance department was able to detect it. If you go to our Facebook page and our Crime Watch, there's 5 things that you can do to deter this. Verify all transactions and payment and financial information via phone or in person with a known individual. Employ dual-factor authentication regarding changes. Monitor IT systems for the presence of malware. Monitor and restruct the use of auto forwarding, and use the domain registration monitoring service. Also, right now, this is a big season for the people that reach out and do IRS scams, where they'll call people, especially older individuals, and tell them that the IRS and that they owe them money and send it out. The IRS never, ever, ever uses the telephone. They always use the mail. So if you receive something like this, you just hang up immediately. Second thing I have here for us is our booking stations. As you know, we're one of 13 booking stations throughout Bucks County. And I just got the results for last year. We fell in, there was 7,592 bookings within Bucks County. We accounted for almost 8% of them, almost 600 bookings. As a result, the township was to receive $51,131.50 back from these bookings. Presently, we have in our account $245,242.39. Now, we can't use this money for anything, but we can use it for things that are associated with the booking center. We just replaced the gate back there, and we'd had cement work done, and that type of thing we can use it for. Our safety net program, which Lieutenant Ward had spoke about the other night, was replacing rapid recovery. We're just almost ready to get that up and running. We have some rules that have to be looked over by our attorney, and that's being done as we speak. Our Chief for a Day program is approaching the halfway point. Our Coffee with a Cop will be the end of the month at March 29th at the Senior Citizen Center at 9:30. And our drug take-back is scheduled for April 27th. Finally, as a member of this police department and a member of the community, I want to thank Mr. Galloway and his family for an excellent job in the St. Patrick's Day Parade. You and your family make our job a lot easier.
Thank you, Chief.
That's all I have this morning.
Okay. Just a couple things. For those that aren't familiar with the rapid recovery and safety net programs, I mean, obviously, rapid recovery we've had here in the township for, well, I think as long as I've been here.
Yes.
And safety net's replacing it. So for those that aren't aware, just let them know what that's for.
Safety net is very similar to rapid recovery. It's for impaired individuals and the elderly. It's a device that's attached to the individual, and there's a homing device, and it's directed by one individual. We have 4 officers, one from each crew, that will be trained in this, and we also have a detective that will be trained in this. It helps us when somebody walks off someplace, and that's what it is, and it's being fully funded by a grant.
Okay.
It's a bracelet they wear, right?
Yes. It's looks like a watch, Mr. Dentz.
Yeah. Okay. So for people that might have dementia or Alzheimer's, or
Yes.
a child who is nonverbal autistic, that
Yes.
this is a way to sort of wrap, a safety net basically,
Yes.
so that we can find them. So okay. Also, I know we periodically get questions from the public about what kinds of vehicles should be on the roads, what kinds should not, and over the, or I guess it was Saturday or Friday, there was a horrible accident in Ben Salem involving 2 teenagers on a dirt bike in a residential neighborhood, traveling at a high rate of speed apparently without helmets, and collided with a vehicle that was just backing out of a driveway, and one of the teenagers was killed. The other teenager is clinging to life as we speak. We know that's an issue in some of the neighborhoods in Falls, that we have typically younger kids, teenagers, or people in their 20s who are riding dirt bikes, quads, golf carts, things like that. What laws are in place now? Are there any things that we could do to sort of make it more efficient?
Well, right now there are no place for the people to take their quads and/or these dirt bikes. That's one of the problems. All the wooded areas are taken up, either owned by the county, the township, and/or the railroad properties. There's very few places that they can take them. They really should be governed by their parents, and that's the bottom line.
No, I agree.
And it starts and ends with the family, and they're certainly not legal because it has to be properly registered, properly inspected to be out on the street. It's a problem, and it continues to be a problem when parents turn a blind eye to this, and subsequently that's what happens. A tragedy happens. We don't chase quads because then something ultimately will bad happen. If we stop somebody with a quad, we can take the quad. We can have it confiscated, and then it turns into a problem. They have to show us ownership, and they have to go through a long, drawn-out process to get their quad back.
Sure, but
that's the bottom line to it. And the individuals riding a quad, they run the risk if they don't have a license, it's going to be a while before they get their license because they're going to be papered up with a lot of citations, and that'll prevent them from getting their license.
Okay. All right, thank you. That's a question I had. Any other questions or comments?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Enjoy your trip.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Drive safe.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me get on.
Sure, no problem. Okay, we are up to public comment. Just for those in the room, we do have a 45-minute maximum, 5-minute limit per speaker, and a 45-minute maximum. We start with the resident sign-in sheet, and if we make it through the residents, then we move on to non-residents. Just a few things to make, a few announcements to make, which I think will be of interest to the people in the room. Next week, next Tuesday, in this room will be the Planning Commission meeting, which will hear the Elcon proposal. I believe they're the only thing on the agenda. Is that right?
That's
right. Right. So there's only the Planning Commission only is going to hear next week. It's the only thing on their agenda. So that's next week. Planning Commission, for those that are not aware, is an advisory board. They don't have a legal authority, not like a zoning board. A zoning board can grant or deny variances. Planning Commission reviews plans like the ones that we just heard, the 3 plans we heard tonight. They make recommendations and comments, and those are then passed on to us. So they're an advisory board only. So, you know, just and obviously volunteers helping the township. The township will hold a special meeting on April 30th. The site is still to be determined. Mr. Gray is going to be in contact with the superintendent of Pennsbury tomorrow to try and find a suitable location. But April 30th, the township will have a public meeting regarding the Elcon proposal. You know? Again, it won't be in this room, but it'll be one of the schools trying to figure out with the school district which school works best based on their schedules and their availability. Okay. We will still have, the township will still have its regular April meeting, which will, I think it's the 16th or something like that, whatever the third Tuesday is. But there would be nothing on that agenda regarding Elcon, as obviously there's nothing on this agenda regarding Elcon. The April 30th meeting will be the meeting for Elcon. I also wanted to address one comment that was made, and the township did put out a press release last week, I think it was last or 2 weeks ago, following the DEP's meeting at the Sheraton 2 weeks ago. One of the officials from the DEP made a comment that was inaccurate, and we had to make sure that was clarified. The individual, I don't remember the woman's name, from DEP made a comment that the township has the ability to change zoning on this property, which would mean that Elcon would not be able to be built there. That is not an accurate statement. The township does not have the ability to randomly change zoning on a private piece of property, on anybody's private piece of property. We don't have that right. No more than we would have the right to go to anybody in this room and just change your zoning without your approval or input. Property owners can ask for their zoning to be changed, and this board would be the one to decide whether or not that was something that was worth doing. As an example, for those here in Falls Township, what was St. Joseph the Worker Church and School, when the Archdiocese closed that facility and sold it to a developer, the zoning had to be changed from institutional to residential, and that was something that the developer came to us and asked us to do. Obviously, this is a privately owned property. U.S. Steel has owned this property for about 70 years. It's been zoned as it is for about 70 years, and so we cannot just change zoning. So I know that was a comment that was made, and I'm not really sure why the individual made that comment, but that's not an accurate statement. So I just want to make sure people understand that. All right, so we do have obviously quite a few people signed up. Right. And the first name on the list we have, again, from the Falls residents is Joan Graves.
Good evening again. So I just have a few comments. When we were at the DEP meeting, they kept referencing the fact that some of the questions that were proposed had to be presented to Falls Township. So, but just a few other comments. So I find it ironic that the name of the company who wants to further pollute our air and potentially our water is entitled Elcon Recycling Services. Since the definition of recycling is to treat or process used or waste materials so as to make suitable for reuse, and since the materials that will be the byproduct of this facility cannot be used again, the liquid waste is merely being converted to toxic solid waste. What type of usage has Elcon determined for the byproduct of the processing of the, and this is a quote from their website, highly polluted aqueous hazardous waste from the various markets they intend to approach? That's a misnomer, and the terminology being used is incorrect. You see, I tend to mistrust a company that states they are going to build one facility initially and then submits a plan for two 70,000 square foot facilities. Although Elcon has stated that their solid byproduct will not be accepted at a local landfill, what happens when they are successful in delisting some of the chemicals of this waste byproduct? More toxic materials being retained in our township? So why hasn't Falls Township passed a clean air ordinance which might have deterred this company from even locating here? Thank you. I need my 5 minutes. Research lends to this being something that can be done at the local level. It is because the existing air in our town, is it because the existing air in our township would not meet the criteria for this type of ordinance? Since we as residents of Pennsylvania are asked to separate our waste products since the 1990s, why hasn't the DEP and Falls Township in the past 4 years pushed back on the company, denied the request, and forced other states to produce their toxic liquid waste at the source? To process, their toxic liquid waste at the source. So subsequent to my statement, some of the diligent people who have fought the building of this facility will follow with their statements outlining the effects on health, welfare, and safety of our residents. And this is going to be all the information with respect to the impact on the air and all the statistics. So I'm not going to address any of that. And the residents of surrounding townships, municipalities, and our sister state in New Jersey. So what I would like to address again is what I addressed previously. The issues affecting the smallest members of ours and the surrounding communities and the numerous schools in the geographic area impacted. Since we know that, based on Elcon's website, there will be no truck traffic related to Elcon's operations on Pennsylvania Avenue. And Elcon has contracted with a private hauling company to transport this hazardous liquid waste to its facility, which will take it within several hundred yards of Bucks County Montessori Charter School, an elementary school with 193 students ranging in ages from 6 to 12. And we already know that the truck route from southern New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina to the facility, based on the letter from SJ Transportation Company located in southern New Jersey. So we already know that route. So what route will the trucks take to the facility from northern New Jersey, New York, Rhode Island, Connecticut, Massachusetts, when the company realizes it's not cost effective to use 295 South in New Jersey to Scudder's Fall Bridge into Pennsylvania to 95, then Route 13 to the Tyburn Road exit? Historically, Elcon has stated that this will be the northern route to the facility. Since that is not the most expeditious way to transport the toxic liquid waste, what happens when they change the route and their vehicles utilize the Route 1 bridge, which is being utilized now by so many trucks, to Route 13, exiting at Tyburn Road East, which brings these vehicles within hundreds of feet of this elementary school? When a spill, and I say when, because it will happen, when a spill of liquid toxic waste occurs, what about the safety of those children and the faculty who are from Falls as well as surrounding townships? Who will be responsible for the cleanup when a spill occurs? Why hasn't Falls Township asked for a presentation from SJ Transportation prior to reviewing any documentation from Elcon? I said one more thing. What type of legacy are we leaving for our children and grandchildren? A township where no one will choose to live in the future because it will become another Superfund site that will require extensive cleanup and where people will not want to live. Thank you.
Don Markert.
Answers to those questions?
We'll answer questions at the end. We'll keep it running to a little.
Good evening. Don Markert, 64, resident of Falls Township. I oppose the Elcon's operations in Falls Township, and I ask you to reject Elcon's plan to locate and operate in Falls Township and any other location. Elcon refers to itself as a recycling facility. I'm going to be a little redundant here. Its name seems to denote the services it provides as Elcon Recycling Services, LLC. In this context, the word recycling is, however, a deception, a euphemism for polluter. What's the true nature of the services that Elcon provides? Elcon doesn't recycle anything. A more appropriate name would be Elcon Hazardous Waste Redistribution Services. Elcon accepts hazardous waste from hazardous waste generators and redistributes the hazardous waste into the local environment and to the landfills. Where in that process is recycling performed? The answer, nowhere. Like all polluters, Elcon's operation will have an immediate negative effect on the local inhabitants and also bequeath to the future an environmental time bomb that will need to be diffused and cleaned up by the future generations. Elcon's processes will directly discharge pollutants into the atmosphere and ultimately result in the disposal of concentrated hazardous waste solids from their operations into landfills. Any of these activities even remotely related to recycling? The answer is no. For decades, the taxpayers of the United States have been paying for the remediation of thousands of Superfund sites across the United States of America that are a legacy of industry's disregard for the environment, the people, and the future in their blind pursuit of profits. The only rational option available to us to avoid the health, economic, and environmental consequences of Elcon's recycling, quote-unquote recycling, activities is to proactively prevent Elcon from polluting the environment in the first place. Benjamin Franklin's axiom, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, is an appropriate application for your consideration. Franklin's statement was related to the fire safety and prevention, but the applicability to Elcon instance, since the safety and health of our communities and the environment are of paramount importance today and into the future. We know that fire prevention saves lives. I submit to you that Elcon prevention and rejection will save lives too. You, the Falls Township Supervisors, collectively have the power to proactively intervene to stop Elcon's plant from locating and operating in Falls Township. Catastrophes have dominated the recent news reports. With the continuing ITC storage tank fires in LaPointe, Texas, we get a vision of some of the risk potential Elcon could pose to Falls Township and surrounding communities. There are 19 schools located within 5 miles of that fire location. A similar risk or even greater risk exists in Falls Township and surrounding communities. The recent crash of 2 Boeing 737 MAX 8 aircraft has once again exposed the lethal consequences and an ugly side of the relationship between the regulators and the regulated. Evidently, these failed regulatory system practices have permeated every level of government's regulatory apparatus. In March 15th PBS NewsHour article entitled "Two Deadly Crashes" raised questions about FAA's close ties to Boeing. The FAA deferred to Boeing to perform regulatory functions. For example, to do government-required safety inspections as planes are being designed and assembled, approve design changes in aircraft repairs. Why does this system exist? The article provides some insight here too. The FAA concedes it doesn't have the resources to keep up with the growing aviation industry, and experts say it lacks the personnel to inspect every component, especially those made in other countries. In a 1993 report, the Government Accountability Office warned that FAA was falling behind the industry in technical competence because of a lack of training and delegation of tasks to manufacturers. Another quote, the FAA readily states it doesn't understand the 4 million lines of code and 150 computers, Schiavo said. What they do see is that Boeing follows the process. They check the FAA check boxes. During the PA DEP Elcon presentation on March 5th, DEP representatives described a similar reliance on industry, and more specifically Elcon, to perform regulatory responsibilities. The PA DEP revealed during the Elcon public meeting that it doesn't have the resources available to perform the regulatory oversight and enforcement of Elcon's compliance to permitted operating conditions. During the DEP Elcon presentation, the DEP Public Affairs representative enumerated items contained in a checklist that apparently were requirements for determining the suitability for locating this business at a specific location in the township. The meeting attendees roared in opposition as each checklist item was read and the DEP's approval checkmark confirmed. As a quote from the PBS NewsHour article describes the FAA's primary concern, Boeing checked the check boxes. I consider myself to be a reasonable person, and I would not have marked off any of the checkbox items that they listed, that the DEP listed. Not one of them would I selected or checked off. If we fail to learn from the recent historical catastrophic events and the root causes, we expose ourselves to unacceptable levels of risk and the possibilities of experiencing similar, identical, or more devastating events in the future. I oppose Elcon's operations in Falls Township, and I ask you to reject the operation and siting of Elcon in Falls Township. Thank you.
Thank you. Hasib Abdurrahman.
Good evening. My name is Hasib Abdurrahman. My family and I have been Falls Township residents since the year 1985. And I just want to say that my family has been well pleased with our residency over the years. Magnificent school district, the Pennsbury School District, and we have over the years attended township meetings with the board's supervisors here. So I'm grateful to have a moment, take a moment to come in and give my thanks and appreciation to all of the board supervisors. Those of you I don't know, but I had a blessed opportunity of meeting Mr. Harvey this past Sunday at the Zubaydah Foundation Masjid. And let me say this here. The reason why I'm here is because I read a magnificent article in the Falls Township communique written by Mr. Harvey Jr. And I was so impressed, and the article was front page about Sam Snipes. Well, we at Zubaydah Foundation work with Sam Snipes and his wife Marion over the years, over the past 12 years since the inception of Zubaydah Foundation, located right across the street from Charles Bame Middle School. And Sam was very avid, but one of the things that pointed out by Mr. Harvey, as well as Jay, who writes for the columnist with the Bucks Courier Times, is I did not know that Mr. Snipes was avidly involved in the spearhead pioneer behind the Myers family, who was the first black family to be to have residency in Bucks County. And if you go back and check over the history going back to 1957, then we know the results of that. So, Mr. Harvey, I congratulate you on the magnificent article that you wrote. You know, my family was inspired by that article. I said we knew the memorial for Mr. Snipes is coming up because they had announced it 2 months ago. And I said, I told my family that I will be there to speak as one of the representatives for the personal relationship that I have with the Snipes family, and also working very closely with the Snipes as a result of the Zubaydah Foundation and the interfaith community for Lower Bucks. So I again want to say that, and I want to say this, that I met Mr. Harvey, who took up his precious time to come to Zubaydah Foundation. This past Sunday, we had a memorial for the unfortunate tragedy in New Zealand. So Mr. Harvey comes up, and as he came, we were talking, and I was trying to picture, I said, Harvey, where'd this come from? And then the article hit me that you wrote that article, sir. And I'm grateful for the article that you wrote. And as a result of you being here, do I have your permission? We would be honored if you would say a few words. But I had to get his permission first. So he granted permission, and therefore he was one of many speakers that spoke. And as I told Mr. Harvey, and I wanted to say it publicly to everyone here, see, we should hear about the good things that people in the community do, whether they are elected officials or private citizens. He didn't have to be there, but he chose to come there as a private citizen. And I want everyone to know that Zubaydah Foundation, the membership of Zubaydah Foundation appreciates that. Imam Newman Chima, who you met, Mr. Harvey met prior to the program, getting ready to get off, and it was a very successful program, which was televised on TV. They gave us a couple of seconds of time. NBC was there. So we're here to give our thanks and appreciation to the Falls Township supervisors, everyone that's affiliated, those who gave your prayers and came out and said a few words or just sent in emails or whatever. Then I'm here as a representative of Zubaydah Foundation to share our thanks and appreciation, and let us continue to come together and let it not so much be a situation of a tragedy. Far too often we come together when there's a tragedy, you get everybody come out. Well, I mean, we had every kind of faith possible that you could think of that came out this past Sunday. Now we want to see what the results will be, because we would like to form coalitions so that we can sit down, because we all have the same problem. If it is not coming from the Jewish community, then it's coming from either community. It could come from, it could happen to anyone. And so this concern, and I'll close out, is a very serious concern. We're looking at our security measures, and we're talking to the Lower Makefield Township Police, and we will be interested in any advice that the Board of Supervisors would have to give us in terms of what we can do to be, because we look at ourselves as being helpers in the community, to make a difference in the community. And this is what Zubaydah Foundation is all about. And I thank you so much for your time. And I wanted to just, thank you so much. I wanted to just, thank you, give my card to each of the board supervisors, because we're going to have an open house in June, and the community, the public, is welcome to come out. We're not only inviting the Falls Township supervisors, whether you are a resident or not a resident, you are welcome to come out to that open house, which is going to be at Zubaydah Foundation, which is 855 Big Oak Road, right across the street from Charles Bain Middle School. So come on out. Okay. Thank you.
Boyd Owens.
Hi, good evening. My name is Boyd Owens. I've been a resident in Falls Township since 2005. By profession, I'm a mechanical engineer. By education, I've been a factory manager and a plant manager for factories for close to 25 years. The last 10 years, I've worked as an industrial statistician and an analyst currently with Ally Bank. When I first heard about the Elcon application, I decided I needed to educate myself on it. I've managed to read through about 600 pages of the several thousand pages that the application is. So I certainly haven't covered everything in that application, but I wanted to bring up a concern that I saw almost immediately in the application. On page 6 of the general information section of the EPA application, they listed the horizontal location, the latitude and longitude location of the site in the North American datum of 1983. So they've used the current location standard for that. On their vertical standard, which is their elevation standard, they use the North American Geodetic Vertical datum of 1929. For any engineering boss I've ever worked for, if I had mixed standards like that, he'd have handed it back to me and told me to redo it. A point also to make is that the current standard, I think it's the 1988 North American Vertical Standard, is accurate to 2.5 inches. The 1929 standard is accurate to 1 foot. That was disproved by a U.S. Geological Survey study in 1977, where they found that the average across the nation was 3.5 foot of error. And that was what led to the deprecation of that standard by the federal government in July of 1994. I've been unable to get an answer about its current status in Pennsylvania or in Bucks County. However, I do know that Pennsylvania is one of the states that still does allow it. And those states had some options of still using it in remote areas. I was able to actually find some places on the Pennsylvania Geological Survey tool up in the middle of the Allegheny Forest that still had it. I also found some places along the Appalachian Trail west of Hamburg, Pennsylvania, which used to be called the St. Anthony's Wilderness. It's still one of the most inaccessible areas of Pennsylvania, is still using it. All of the FEMA flood maps are in North American Vertical Datum in 1988. So, immediately, if you go out to the federal flood maps and say, hey, are they in a floodplain? You've got their stated elevation in one standard, the current maps that you would be comparing them to in a second standard. The other point of concern is that the FEMA flood maps, if you actually go and look on site, the flood lines they show may or may not actually be where they are. The FEMA maps get modified by what's called a letter of map revision. And currently there's 3 letters of map revision that have been sent to Falls Township for local enforcement. And that's a standard FEMA practice. They don't update the maps immediately. They'll allow so many of these variations to add up, and then they'll change the maps once a decade or whatever, and rely on the local communities to enforce the standards in the meantime. So, the one particular LOMAR that jumped out at me where this was important was the, let's see, where's the date on this one? It's March 22nd of 2017, which is a modification to the flooding along the Biles Creek waterway. And it provides a chart which you could read, distance up and down the creek. And then in the vertical elevation, it has the floodplain lines and what the elevations are. This chart is in North American Vertical Datum of 1988. So I figured, well, okay, you got to convert between the datums. The only way I found to do that was the U.S. Geological Survey has a program called VertCon, and it's basically some nice Fortran code that they wrote, and you can go out and you can find an old 32-bit XP computer, and then you can execute it on a command line, and you put in your latitude and longitude and your vertical elevation, and it'll come back and it'll give you a nice conversion. And it told me to subtract about a little over a foot from the number. Add into that the plus or minus tolerance, and all the effort it seems to of VelCon to convince us that they're not in the floodplain starts to become a little more questionable. Anyway, I'm not a hydrologist. So I was not able to interpret this, but the other point is they're on their elevation plans of their building. They have the 19-foot elevation on some of the plans above their containment pits. There's no indication on those that I could see of which datum they're using. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Tony Batiste?
Tony Batiste, resident of Falls Township. On March 5th, the DEP held an informational meeting about ELCON, and during that meeting, one of the people from DEP referenced a certificate that had been issued by Falls Township, and I'm kind of guessing it was from the zoning department. I don't recall hearing anything about this in any of the meetings. I haven't found anything online. So I filled out a request for a copy on March 12th. No one has called me to say that the copy's ready, and I asked what it was about, and that's part of that reference that I asked for, haven't received. But I believe what it is a certificate, and I may have called it certificate of appropriateness because I couldn't remember what they said at the DEP. But I believe what it actually is either a certificate or a letter of zoning consistency, which my guess is means that somebody thinks that Elcon actually fits the zoning for that piece of property. And I have a copy of the MPM Materials Processing and Manufacturing District that it falls in. I don't really see where it exactly falls in there. So what I want to know is, was this approved by the zoning board? And was it reviewed by legal?
Zoning board doesn't approve things like that, Mrs. Batiste. It would have gone to the zoning officer, Mr. Bennett. His job is to take a look at the project. He would work with legal to look at the project itself, what it entails. Any business has to submit a letter of intent, essentially giving a rough outline of what they may intend to do. Now, what you're talking about is really from the phase 1, I think, DEP review.
I don't know. It was mentioned at the DEP, and I believe it's probably over a year old.
The phase 1 part of the DEP review is essentially just to see if the facility, if the company is basically, is it zoned
if it's in the right zoning. But if legal had looked at it, they might have said, no, it wasn't, and we wouldn't even be here tonight.
Or you're not accurate maybe in the reading of the zoning. Ms. Gallagher, do you want to talk about zoning a little bit with this facility? Does it fit or not, basically?
Our office, apologies, I'm not as loud as Mr. Clark. Okay. I'm not as loud as Mr. Clark, but I will try and keep my voice up. We did review the letter of intent that came in with Mr. Bennett in connection with the MPM zoning, and it is a permitted use in that district, based on our review.
Okay, what exactly in your review said it was permitted? Which part did it fall under?
I apologize. I don't have the letter of intent in front of me, but I do know that it was something that was done in connection with our office in consultation with Mr. Bennett.
Okay, when you get a chance to look at it, could you post that somewhere so we can see exactly why you think that it meets the criteria in that zoning? Yes. Because I don't see it.
Well, it does. We can post it, but it does. Thank you. June Brennan? June Brennan? Pass? Okay. Michael Tadlock?
Good evening, gentlemen. It's no surprise to anyone. I'm here to talk about Elcon. Okay. I oppose it. I would hope that you gentlemen would have the wisdom to deny this. It's an inappropriate use for that type of facility, that close to the water supply, in that populated of an area. Bucks County has the second worst air quality in all of Pennsylvania. We're number 66 out of 67 counties. We have double the national average for asthma cases because of the bad air quality. Last year, we had 17 orange days. An orange day is when they determine that the air is unfit for children, the elderly, people with cardiac or respiratory conditions. It's 17 of those last year. We've already had one this year. Now, Elcon is saying that they are going to bring in about 20 trucks a day. It's a 7-day-a-week operation, 365 days a year. That's over 7,000 trucks a year. Big tankers, potential spills, lots of air pollution, in addition to the air pollution that Elcon says that they will produce, which is less than 25 tons, making them a minor source of air pollution in this area. However, as somebody else mentioned, Elcon has already announced their intention to have a phase 2. They're going to basically double the size of their facility, which means they're going to double the trucks. So the 7,000 trucks annually are going to be 14,000 trucks annually. And the 25 tons, less than 25 tons of pollution will be over that, and there'll be a major source of pollution, which would not be permitted in this area because we are in a non-attainment area. Okay? Now, like I said, they've already announced, it's in their application, it's on their website, they already plan a phase 2. And they're going to get their foot in the door with artificially low numbers, and then we're going to see them apply for an expansion because they know it's easier to get an expansion once you're already established. So like I say, I would hope you guys would have the wisdom, you gentlemen, to deny this. Now, if you can't find the wisdom, okay, if it doesn't go the way that I, and apparently a lot of these people hope that it would go, all right? At the very least, please protect the residents of this township. And I have some suggestions, okay? If you can't find the wisdom to deny them, at least force them to post a bond, a huge bond, like hundreds of millions of dollars bond, okay? Because there's 5 million people downriver from us, okay? Philadelphia has said if it's even a moderate spill, it'll be catastrophic, okay? All the homes, restaurants, hotels, everybody's going to close for 3 or 4 days because they're not going to have any water. And who do you think they're going to sue? Who do you think they're going to come back to for the lost business and the inconvenience? They're going to sue Falls Township. It's going to be another Elk River. Elk River was in West Virginia. They had a spill. You gentlemen are familiar with that. And 7 days after the spill, when the lawsuits started to come rolling in, okay, Freedom Industries declared bankruptcy, packed up, and left town. And they left the state, the county, and the local municipality holding the bag. Okay? So you need to protect the residents. This could financially ruin us. The other suggestion, again, I would hope you could find the wisdom, but if you can't, all right? I would suggest to you maybe something like a tipping fee. We have that for the landfill, whether it's by volume or weight. And the fund would be used for equipment and training for first responders, because Alcon has already said if it doesn't happen on their property, it's not their problem.
Allow him to finish, please.
Okay.
We're going to allow him to finish.
Okay. So the fund would be used, for the equipment and training of first responders, because this stuff is toxic chemicals. Okay? As Alcon has already said, they're not responsible for accidents beyond their property line. And then you could use some of that money also to hire a full-time or part-time township employee to be on site to monitor what Alcon is doing. This nonsense about self-reporting, okay, is just ludicrous. I mean, Alcon can't even fill out the application. They've got like 19 pages of deficiencies, okay? They can't even get the drawings right. They can't get any of the numerical data right. And we're going to allow them to give us data saying that everything is all well and good. So, again, I would hope you could find the wisdom to deny this project because it is inappropriate. But if you can't, please take precautions for the residents of Falls Township and the surrounding area so that we're not bankrupt.
Carol Farley, excuse me. Carol Farley, please.
Good evening, everybody. This won't take long, honest. I just want to get my 2 cents in. Two more concerns than when I talked to you the last time. One is because there's limited access to this Elcon site. What in the case of a natural disaster, how will they get the tankers in there? I mean, you can't access this place from the north because the river's there, so you have to come around. So it's not like you could, like Elkhorn was in the middle of a desert, so to speak. You could access it from every which way. Where it is now, you can only come up through Pennsylvania or through the township.
What kind of, I'm sorry, what kind of tank, you mean truck, the tanker
The
trucks, or-
tankers carrying the hazmats.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean like a response crew? How would an emergency response crew? Is that what you're
No, I'm wondering how they would get the material to Elkhorn if through a natural disaster those roadways were cut off. Would they bring it in by rail?
No.
Would they bring it across on the river?
No. No, they just wouldn't. I mean, if
Can't.
it's...
I seem to think that one time there was some sort of ban, and I can't, sorry. I think there was a ban one time banning barges coming up the river with all kinds of garbage for the landfill.
Right.
And when Sandy hit the New Jersey shore, I can't find this confirmation, but I seem to remember reading that the ban was lifted so that they could clean out New Jersey a lot faster than what they were doing.
That's accurate, yes.
Okay. They called that an emergency.
Right.
Okay, suppose we have an emergency in Falls leading to the Elkhorn site. Are they going to call this an emergency and bring it in some other way?
No, I mean, this is, no, this is a private, bless you. This was a private business, so like any private business, if there's a blizzard and you can't, and a store can't open, then the store doesn't open. I mean, it just doesn't run.
And then what are these guys going to do with their tankers?
The tankers wouldn't leave whatever site they were leaving from, most likely.
Okay. Well, okay. Then I have another concern too, is we don't just have one or two vehicles involved in crashes. There are multi-vehicle crashes. In the event that one of these tankers carrying the hazmat is in a huge collision with other cars, responders aren't going to be able to get there fast enough if the tanker's leaking because of the mangle of metal and everything else. I think it's just a very bad idea to have it there. I'm very much against it. And I think there are too many red flags. And thank you for listening.
Okay,
and I'm done.
Sandra Gartner.
Good evening, Chairman Harvey and fellow board members. My name is Sandra Gartner, and I'm a Falls Township resident. I live about 2 miles from where Elkhorn wants to open up. Our township is in turmoil. We are disgusted at the lack of transparency. We are disgusted at the lack of transparency by our local government. We understand that legally you are obligated not to speak, but that doesn't make it right because you serve us. We pay for you to serve us. We are confused. Why is this now bypassing zoning without us knowing about it? There's evidence and data that deems this unsound. Most importantly, we're very uncertain about the safety of our lives and the security of our lives in Falls Township. I'm a mother. It is my duty to protect my family and provide the best quality of life that I can. I can't do that with Elkhorn here. I am a teacher. I am a church member of Fallsington United Methodist Church. My father grew up in Levittown, Apple Tree section, one of 12 children. I have 61st cousins. I am the youngest of 7 children. Most of us, we all still live here. When you get your concrete done, it's probably one of my cousins or my uncles, right? And here's the thing, I never imagined in a million years that I would have to decide and make that choice. Do I want to leave where my roots are? Do I not want my daughter to grow up with her own family? Or do I want to raise my daughter every day risking the water that she bathes in, the water that I cook our family's dinner with, or the air that she's breathing. Every generation in this community works hard so that the next generation will be more educated, more professional, and more civically engaged. We seek to keep going in that direction. We do not want to devalue our community with Elcon, or anybody like Elcon. In our community, we support each other through things like cancer and losing loved ones. That's beyond our control. The damage to the life that Elcon will make happen, you have control over that. Whatever tax break is being offered, known or unknown, we don't want it. There is no amount of jobs, short-term or long-term, that will justify bringing Elcon to our community. So we call on you now to save us from this catastrophe. Please do whatever you can as soon as you can to restore the certainty that our lives and our families are safe in Falls Township. Thank you.
Holly Harmon? Oh, okay.
I'm not going to get to the other list.
All right, now I get you.
Yeah.
Jeannie Fissinger, is that right? Okay.
Hi, thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. I live in Falls Township, right across the street from an elementary school. Love watching the little kids. I wanted to highlight my concerns with this Elcon facility that maybe haven't been mentioned as of yet. As you know, the Resource Conservation Recovery Act, which I'll refer to the act, governs the generation, management, storage, and disposal of hazardous waste, including hazardous waste pharmaceuticals, or HWPs. I'm not sure if your solicitor is an environmental lawyer. I am not an environmental lawyer. However, I am a lawyer, and I looked this up. So we know that Elcon intends to import HWPs and then dispose of the solid waste from those HWPs here in Falls Township. And I say that because Elcon's website says that it will dispose of solids in a licensed landfill, which we have one. Okay. According to the EPA website, a solid waste is any discarded material that is not otherwise excluded under the regulations that implement the Act. What constitutes a solid waste is not limited to wastes that are physically solid. You can see 40 CFR, Section 261.2. Many solid wastes are liquid, semi-solid, or gaseous materials. I'm concerned that these materials are going to be dumped in our landfill, the solid waste, among the other things that everybody mentioned, okay? And the reason why this is because Elcon is proposing to transport approximately 200,000 tons per year of HWPs into Falls Township. So that's 400 million pounds of what could be either corrosive, meaning it can rust or decompose, toxic, meaning it's poisonous, ignitable, which means it's flammable, for example, if it contains more than 24% alcohol, and reactive, which means it's explosive. I am totally against having these materials dumped in our landfill. Even though their website says that they're going to put less than 1% of solids will be generated, that's still 400,000 pounds per year that would go into our landfills as solids. So I'm going to leave it at that. I'm sickened by this. I didn't even know this was happening. It's partly my fault, but somebody stuck a flyer. Thank you, whoever that was. I don't get out much. I'm working all the time. But somebody stuck a flyer in my mailbox, and I happened to see this, and so I did go out onto Elcon's website. I also looked up the federal regulations, and it's my understanding that the regulations are going to be relaxed. If you look, it says, with the relaxing of the land disposal restrictions found at 40 CFR Section 268 7A, I want to know, would Elcon promise to identify the individual waste codes on the land disposal restriction notification, which, by the way, is the only thing they have to do, is send out an email or post it on their website that there's these toxic, hazardous waste materials being dumped into our landfill. I don't know how many of you check their website on a daily basis. Now I will, but I sure as heck don't. So I'm really concerned about this. I appreciate your taking this into consideration, and I really hope that you decide to reject their proposal. Thank you.
All right, we've reached a little past the 45-minute maximum. So I did want to obviously thank everybody who's come out this evening and past meetings. Those who've sent emails, obviously we've received them. A little difficult getting back to everybody, and especially with the care we're trying to take in terms of exactly what words we use. But I did want to address a couple of the questions that were asked or raised. Regarding the tax break, there is no tax break. I know that was sort of, I guess, a rumor. There was, for 14 years, a tax break for about 1,300 acres, which this facility would have fallen into, but that tax break ended on December 31st, 2018. Went into effect on January 1st, 2005. And so that 14-year tax abatement, which was approved by us, the county, and the school district, is no longer in place. So everyone down there is paying their full taxes right now, and anybody in the future. In terms of transparency, in the 15 years I've been on the board, I don't ever remember posting plans and announcements regarding a project as we did with this one. As soon as the project came in, literally it was the township administration was ordered to put on social media that the township had received plans. That's not something we're required to do, but we chose to do that back in late January. In terms of zoning, obviously we talked about the zoning. It is appropriate zoning. Regarding road control, the township does have control over its own roads. It has limited control over state roads. And so with regard to roads like, Route 1, 13, Tyburn Road, those are all state roads. So they would have to follow PennDOT requirements. I know that was another comment that was made during the DEP meeting, that the township has control over roads and can restrict vehicles. That's not really true. It's a very, very limited control we have, and almost none really, on state roads. And all of the, for example, someone had mentioned Pennsylvania Avenue, that is obviously a township road. And so that's a road we would have control over. Okay. In terms of a licensed landfill, not every landfill is licensed to receive every kind of waste. And so the landfills here in Falls Township that are still in operation are not licensed to take certain wastes. They're specifically more like residential construction wastes. Whether or not, that's when you hear about delisting, that's typically what they're talking about is the waste stream that Elcon is putting out. As of now, my understanding is would not be allowed, but if they're delisted, that might change. And the delisting is something DEP does. So that's just an idea. But I'm sorry.
How long do they have to retain records?
I don't know.
What it is that they're putting in the
I don't know.
ground?
Yeah, I'm not sure. The question is how long do, I guess, Waste Management, I don't know the answer to that. I really don't.
I believe
Yeah.
it's 3 years.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
It's going to be long after 3 years
Yeah.
that we're going to feel the effects.
There was also a reference to the flood maps. And I know Mr. Jones, our engineer, and Tom Bennett, our zoning officer, have spent several years studying flood maps. For those that aren't aware, and there may be some Falls Township residents, especially those in North Park, who might be familiar with this, for a long time, residents of North Park section of Falls Township and some other areas of Falls Township had to pay flood insurance. Despite the fact, this was especially when things were going good with the economy and people took advantage of low interest loans and refinanced their houses, and maybe it was federally insured, and now all of a sudden they had to pay a couple $1,000s a year in flood insurance in an area that is never, ever flooded. And we worked very, very hard. Especially Congressman Murphy, when he was in office, worked very hard with us to try and get a lot of those properties out of the flood zone, simply by asking FEMA to just look at the maps, because as I forget who it was who said it, Mr. Owens, I think, the maps they were using, the elevations they were using went back to the 20s and 30s. And so it was really through our efforts that we got hundreds of properties out of the flood zone. And so Mr. Jones was part of that effort. In terms of what map you're using, how does that affect this project?
We have an open, as you said, Mr. Chairman, we have an open dialogue and have had an open dialogue with FEMA over the last 4 years. So we talked to the Region 3 engineers, and we're very in tune with the township's floodplains. Any project that comes in would have to go through a permitting process in terms of the floodplain ordinance.
Why are we even considering this? For 4 years?
We're not. This is we're not going to be taking, like, I mean, and we've said this at previous meetings, or for those that are new, the township does not have the luxury of just deciding which plans it wants to look at, which plans it does not want to look at. It doesn't have that ability. Legally, we have to look at plans that are submitted. We have a timeline. We have a timeline.
Why don't we have?
We have a timeline we have to abide by. So another comment I think I got through an email was, why doesn't the township wait until after DEP makes their decision before we hear this? We cannot. There is a timeline that we have to abide by. That if, for example, we chose not to do anything on this and just sat on it like a filibuster, if that timeline expired, the project would be deemed approved and they could do whatever they wanted to. So obviously that's not an option I think anybody in here wants us to think about. And so we do have to hear this, which is why we're meeting on the 30th, so that we can make a decision within that time frame. We don't have the luxury of waiting till, I think it was late May, I think was the timeline the DEP has. Finally, finally, the last thing to talk about, I know there's been a lot of discussion of an air ordinance, a clean air ordinance. We had a copy of a clean air ordinance forwarded to us several months ago. Our attorney and his firm took a look several times at this issue and had discussions with other attorneys, and it's not a decision that people are going to like to hear, but we do not have the ability to pass a clean air ordinance. We do not.
I'm the attorney who wrote the ordinance, so I came here to be able to speak to that.
I'm sorry. We do not.
Wait, let him speak.
No, I'm sorry. No. 2 times. I understand that. Yes, he is. Yes, he is. Yes, he is. Excuse me. In 2013 and in 2016, 2 different communities in Pennsylvania, the city of Allentown and a community in Lancaster County, both passed clean air ordinance. Both passed clean air ordinances. Both were told by the Attorney General, and we have copies of the letter, that they are not allowed to do that. They are precluded by state law. This is not something that we're doing lightly. It's not something, that wouldn't have had our attorney look for weeks and weeks and weeks upon this issue if it was not something we wanted to consider. I know, again, I apologize. Sometimes the news we have to deliver is not always good. But in terms of a clean air ordinance, it's not something we're permitted to do. Okay, I apologize.
Supervisor, but
sorry.
You're incorrect in what you're saying. I'd be glad to speak to this if I can only have.
We're going to take a brief recess. We'll come back with our agenda. Thank you.
What was your destination?
Montego Bay, Jamaica.
Okay, so we're looking at Playa Muñeros in right outside Cancun.
Nice.
Yeah. So what was your?
It takes all the stress out of it. They do everything.
So that's the big stress right now is trying to figure out do we want to which direction.
You know,
meeting about the enterprise zone, so we're clear on that now.
I got married in 2007, so it's a while ago, but I think the whole thing for the videographer. Is John Norcross on your council in Georgetown? For the videographer, everything was like 3,500.
No, different John Norcross.
And that was including like
I work with John.
our vacation too.
Yeah. So what we're planning on doing. So the so one of the things that so we're
Thank you.
even if we get a 50%. Right.
It's your fault, Vince.
Well, we're not paying for it.
Okay, we're going to call our meeting back to order, about 8:45. One correction, my earlier comments, I stated that it was the Attorney General's office that sent out those letters. It was the General Counsel of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania who sent the letters. So either way, the state has ruled that municipalities are precluded from doing ordinances like the one that's been discussed or raised. Item number 6 is considered a 2019-2020 stone and asphalt bids for Falls Township. Mr. Gray?
The Bucks County Consortium road material bid was opened by New Britain Township, and the results were forwarded to Falls. Jason Lawson, Public Works Director, has recommended the board consider awarding the 2019 road materials bid to 2 separate companies. The stone and aggregate items and the blacktop and binder materials to Eureka Stone Quarry, and the cold patch material to Heway. Both of these companies provided the same material last year as well. 2018 expenditures for Eureka was just over $62,000, and Heway was $1,900. This time, the board is asked to consider these 2 companies for these materials.
Okay, comments or questions for board members?
No.
No.
Is there any public comment? Is there a motion to approve the or accept the consortium bids, Eureka Stone Quarry for stone and aggregate items, blacktop and binder material, and HEI Way LLC for the QPR coal patch material?
So moved.
Seconded.
Mrs. Pullen?
Mr. Galloway?
Yes.
Mr. Brasky?
Yes.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Dents?
Yes.
Mr. Rocco?
Yes.
Item 7, consider authorization for advertisement for ordinance amending Chapter 209. Ms. Gallagher?
Thank you, Mr. Harvey. As the board will recall, in December, we did a very comprehensive update to the Township zoning code. Since then, we have noticed a couple of things that need to be tweaked. In particular, the big change here is actually reverting back to the township's prior notification requirements. The municipality's planning code allows the township to designate which property owners would be notified in the event that there is an application for a zoning variance. Previously, for residential applications, the township had required that the contiguous property owners be notified. The amendment that we passed in December would have increased that to all property owners within, I believe, 500 feet. This would take it back to the contiguous property owners for residential applications only. Non-residential applications or applications in a non-residential area would continue to require the notification for the 500 feet. So that is the big change here. Other than that, it's just cleaning up some of the language that we discovered needed some cleaning up.
Okay. And I know this was raised by Mr. Bennett, because he was looking at a project in sort of like a Levittown house that was a relatively simple project, and the number of homes that had to be notified was pretty extensive.
I think it was in excess of 50. And one important point on regarding these applications is that the township is the entity that actually sends out the notifications for residential applications. So there's nothing preventing the township from expanding that area if there's an application that the township believes is worthy of doing so.
Okay. So it's a minimum, basically.
It's a minimum. That's correct.
All right. So this will be advertising only. Comments or questions from Ms. Gallagher?
No questions.
Nope.
No, this makes sense.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. All right, it's advertisement. Motion to authorize advertisement.
So moved.
Second.
Wait, I'm sorry. Is there a motion to open public comment?
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Ms. Batiste?
When you say residential properties, do you include those properties where there could be a group home?
If there is if there's a property being used as a group home that applies for a zoning variance, or if the property would not necessarily allow for a group home and an entity wants to go in there, that would be included in a residential application.
Okay, in that case, I don't think that just contiguous properties, which are those abutting up against that property, that it's fair. The rest of the people on that street should at least know, because their kids are going to be walking back and forth past that house.
And there's nothing that prevents the township from providing additional notification.
No, but if you say that that's all that you require, that's all they're going to do, unless somebody figures out, hey, that's going to be a group home in there. I think at least it should be the street. Just a thought.
A motion to close public comment?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so as it stated, is there a motion to authorize advertisement?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, consider authorization for advertisement for the municipal building generator. Mr. Gray?
The board is asked to consider authorization to advertise for the Township generator project. Bid specifications will be prepared by Township staff and Jones Engineering Associates. Board is asked to consider this at this time.
Okay. Mr. Jones, want to talk a little about the generator?
Sure. We are going to hire an electrical engineer who will design the generator, size it, design it, and design the connections between the generator and the building that will satisfy the needs of the township. Our role in it is going to be to put the bid package around his plan and specification.
Okay. All right. Mr. Boraski, I know you've been working on this. You want to talk a little bit about it? Go ahead.
Yeah, you know, pretty much we're at a point where we're going to be wrapping up the design of it. I think we're just waiting on a little bit of interconnections and a main breaker from the generator, for the new generator. But I think right now we just had a power failure, right?
Yes, we did.
And only half even went online. So, and even at that, it's only, I think, some couple receptacles, maybe a server room and some lights. So, you know, the township's in a desperate need here to move forward as fast as we can.
Okay. All right, so is there a motion then to authorize advertisement for the municipal building generator?
So moved.
Second.
Public comment? See no hands. Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, now item number 9, consider change order for the 2018 road improvement program. Mr. Gray?
Township received a memorandum from Joe Jones at JEA on March 14th regarding a change order for the 2018 road improvement program for the inspection and engineering services in the amount of $34,620 for the completion of the construction project. This fee covers the costs required for inspection and construction administration services through completion of the project, as well as the cost of previous invoice from the construction document preparation phase of the project. The board is asked to consider this. Mr. Jones is here for any additional questions you may have.
Okay, Mr. Jones, and add anything to Mr. Gray's summary?
No, I would just say that, you know, this will be the only change order that we propose to you. It's a little bit unfortunate that we have to bring it forward, but it was due to the transition between the old firm and ours, and it's all that's needed just to complete the job.
Comments or questions for Mr. Jones?
Actually, that was my only question, Joe. I was just wondering if that's what was just left over from a T&M project that you've had to pick up.
That's correct.
Okay.
Mr. Galloway?
No, it's clear.
None.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Okay. Any public comment? See no hands. Okay, is there a motion then to approve the change order to Jones Engineering for the 2018 road program in the amount of $34,620?
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Pullen?
Mr. Galloway?
Yes.
Mr. Boraski?
Yes.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Dents?
Yes.
Mr. Rocco?
Yes.
Okay, item number 10, consider police department consultant for hiring assistance. The township has contacted the Pennsylvania Chiefs of Police Association and is with an eye toward making some changes in the police hiring practices. The idea would be to have the Pennsylvania Chiefs of Police Association do some aspects of the hiring policies while still doing some things in-house. See, the board has had some discussions for a while about this, and we do have a proposal from the Pennsylvania Chiefs of Police Association, which we can, I'll have some, are there any comments or questions, basically, from board members or regarding this?
No, I like the idea of us being able to do some stuff in-house, still save money and use them in some other ways.
Okay. This is a service that the Chiefs of Police Association does all over the Commonwealth. They handle a variety of things when it comes to hiring and processes, whether it's or even promotions from patrolmen to corporals, corporals to sergeants, up to detectives, et cetera, even finding chiefs for different municipalities, big ones and small ones. So they have a tremendous amount of experience. And let's see, any other, and we do, as I said, do have a proposal from them. So a motion to retain the services of Pennsylvania Chiefs of Police Association to assist in hiring practices would be following the plan they submitted, or the packet of information they submitted regarding costs, et cetera. Any other comments? No?
No.
Okay. All right, is there a motion then to retain the services of the Pennsylvania Chiefs of Police Association in accordance with the proposal they submitted on January 16th, 2019?
Yes, I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Mrs. Pullen?
Mr. Galloway?
Yes.
Mr. Brasky?
Yes.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Dents?
Yes.
Mr. Rocco?
Yes.
Okay, minutes for February 19th, 2019. Any comments, suggestions, corrections?
Excellent minutes as always, Mrs. Pullen.
Now, is there a motion then to accept the minutes as presented?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The engineers report, Mr. Jones.
Mr. Chairman, you guys have sorry, board members, you have an engineer's report in front of you. This time I hope it's all red, as described.
There's a lot of red on here, yeah?
Yeah, we've had 2 new land developments submitted since our last report, Campy Components and MLH that you've heard tonight. 1 general cell tower review project was submitted in February. In terms of the development and the earth disturbance projects, the red titles indicate that there's an update, and I'll let them stand as they are. In terms of the ongoing township projects at the Quaker Penn Park, we have set the compost toilet. The pad was poured for the front of it. It's in place and being backfilled. It's my understanding that it'll be about another week before the backfill's in place, except for the side where there's going to be an electrical connection, which will dovetail with the electric project that we're at to bid on, or will be out to bid on shortly. So that will finish up over the next couple of weeks. It may be a month to get it finally backfilled. The South Olds Boulevard culvert continues. The general permit will be submitted shortly, and we're on target for a construction in early summer. The 2018 road program has been on hold due to the asphalt plant shutdown. It's my understanding that General Asphalt will be on site by first week of April to continue, and Bustle and Services with landscaping will follow probably the beginning of May, most likely. The 2019 road program is still in the survey phase, but we have coordinated with the geotechnical engineers and are working on underground utility locations and preliminary storm sewer design. And the Pinewood Pool project is a Public Works or a public Department of Park and Rec initiative to install a pavilion at the Pinewood Pool, and we've produced a plan that Mr. Andrews is getting quotes for. And those are the highlights.
Okay. Comments or questions for Mr. Jones?
No questions.
No highlights.
Joe, I'm sorry if I missed the beginning, but were you discussing the tunnel, or?
I did not discuss the tunnel.
Oh, okay. Have you been out there at all?
I have not been out there, but I heard that it's something to see. It's in place.
Yeah.
And I know that they're working on the trail. We have an earth disturbance pending for the trail. That's a component of that, but
At some point, do we have to do a final inspection there?
we will have to do a final inspection.
All right. Last night I met with the, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, just for clarification, this is the tunnel for the on the canal path that goes
Canal
underneath.
path.
I met with the chief, chief of police, I guess, for the DCNR, and he was just asking if, and I didn't know what the answer, whether or not we had been out there. We walked just to get some lumens readings and things like that on the path, so he was kind of asking what the township's, take on the project was.
It's under I'm sorry, Mr. Bresky. It's under an earth disturbance application, so there'll have to be a final sign off, and our inspector has been out there. I believe the lights are in place. I mean, the big holdup on the project
Yeah, that was done.
were the lights, and so I'm sure it's ready for a final inspection.
Okay.
Still no highlights on the electronic version.
That's probably when they scan it, Pete.
Yes.
Good answer. That's all I have.
This is red as can be here. And it looked like,
Blind, right?
I don't know
Well,
if
you're
no,
colorblind.
you're
You
fine.
couldn't-
You're,
could you tell it was
there
red
no
anyway?
red.
I'd be able to tell it was
And
different.
also I noted Wawa. Looks like Wawa wants to open up in early May.
Early May, yes. They're working on the concrete pads. The pumps were being installed over the last couple of days, but they're on target for May 1st. It might be a heavy lift for the contractor, but they're under obligation to do it from the Wawa folks.
Okay.
May 1st, you said?
All right. Excellent. Nope. That's all I have. Thanks.
Okay. I don't have anything. Oh, actually, I did. I'm lying. So I talked earlier, Mr. Jones, about the boat ramp. So we're looking at probably mid-April for
Yes,
docks
I
going in.
apologize. Mid-April would be our normal time, and we're going to monitor the weather and hold to that.
Okay. All right, great. Thank you. All right. Is there a motion then to accept the engineer's report from February 2019?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Bill list. Bills this month in the amount of $1,659,160.24. Of that, 1.6 million, 1.3 million is salary benefits, escrow fund, 2 state funds, and let's see, salt from the road program, or not for the road program, for the public works crew for bad weather. So, again, 1.3 out of the 1.6 comes just down to about 3, 4, 5, about 6 items. Obviously, salary and benefits taking up the biggest amount of that. So, comments or questions for Mr. Gray regarding the bill list? None?
None.
I have none.
All right, is there a motion to pay the bills, $1,659,160.24?
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Pullen?
Mr. Galloway?
Yes.
Mr. Brasky?
Yes.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Dents?
Yes.
Mr.
Sorry.
I'm Harvey, you're dead.
Yes, I'm a yes.
All right, we're going to have another sort of half of our executive session. We get a chance to finish the one from before the meeting, so we're going to finish that after the meeting and report on that next month. Manager comment, Mr. Gray.
Yes, just a few items tonight, Mr. Chairman. First item is a resolution for the board to consider authorizing submission to participate in the application to the Pennsylvania Department of Community and Economic Development for a 5-year state-designated enterprise zone. The enterprise zone is a valuable economic development tool initiated in 1997 and has helped many businesses in Lower Bucks and in Falls Township. Enterprise zone status makes resources available to facilitate investment in properties located in the zone and provides businesses and municipalities with access to state resources that would assist in leveraging investment and job creation in the zone. As mentioned, there is a resolution, and the board is asked to consider adopting this resolution for inclusion for the Bucks County Redevelopment Authority to add to their application.
Okay. All right, is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
This will be resolution 19, is it 12?
12.
2019-12. Okay, motion made and seconded. Any public comment? See no hands. Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Next item I have is I just want to announce several businesses that opened in February 2019. They include 81 Big Oak Road, Suite 202, Priva LLC, and also 24 Falsington Tullytown Road in Levittown, The Sewing Shop. I also want to announce the Falls Township 2019 Spring Yard Waste Cleanup. The yard waste must be bagged in 30-gallon biodegradable paper bags or placed in 30-gallon trash containers without lids. They are to be placed outside by 6 a.m. on Saturday, April 13th, in the same location as your regular trash pickup. Branches must be no longer than 4 feet in length, bundled, and not to exceed 50 pounds. And please, no plastic bags. And finally, I just want to announce that the Newport Village Mylars are ready for signature. And that's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Gray, I think, I don't know if you mentioned it. Is it Free Dump Day coming up, too, in somewhere early April? What do we call it?
Free bulk disposal.
Bulk disposal.
April 20th.
Yeah, April 20th.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was on your list, but yeah.
I was going to announce that next month's meeting.
Yeah, it's the 16th, right. Got it. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Okay. Up to board comments. We'll go again. We'll go in reverse order. Maybe Mr. Rocco.
I wanted to say thank you, Mr. Harvey, for handling the crowd this evening. I think for the most part they were civil. I understand the emotions, but I do want to thank you for taking the lead and answering those questions. So appreciate that.
Sure. Thank you. Mr. Dents?
Yeah, just to echo what Mr. Rocco said, excellent job tonight, Mr. Harvey. And I know it's frustrating for all these people just watching us sit here. One gentleman said that, we're probably great poker players, but it's just as equally frustrating for us. I mean, we all have to sit here and we've been advised not to discuss it. But like I said before, we are listening. We do hear everyone. We see your signs. And just again, we all live in the same town. We're all raising families here. We all own property here. But April 30th is when the Elcon meeting will be before us, and hopefully it's over with at that night. So we have a few people I'd like to appoint, recommend to a few of our boards. The one was Rebecca Link to the CEDC. She put in a letter. I'd like to make a motion to appoint her tonight.
Okay. I'll second that.
All right, motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Talk to her now.
Oh, also Kara Baker to the CEDC, which is the Community and Economic Development Commission. I'll make a motion to appoint Kara Baker as well.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Mr. Brasky?
No, I mean, great comments by everybody. Mr. Dents hits it right on the head that we have to sit up here and there's a lot of, I think, sometimes some misconception that we're not Falls Township residents and we don't live in Falls Township. I personally have seen them comments being on social media. I've grown, been here since I was 12 or 13 years old. And I think it was the first woman that spoke. She talked about the Montessori Charter School. You guys all know, I don't owe this to anyone, but I live directly across the street. My kids come home every day, play basketball. So we are listening. We do hear you guys. My wife works for the school district. I don't know how much more to say that we're residents and my kids are outside, just like the kids in the Montessori Charter School and everyone else that lives in the township.
Galloway.
It just said, yeah, I echo everything that's been said so far, and just like to point out that the people that are coming to the meeting are doing their job, and we're diligently trying to do our job, and Chairman Harvey did a wonderful job tonight.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. Just a couple things for me. The one, Mr. Rockman, who was nice enough to come here and talk about Mr. Snipes, his service, the funeral service they had at George School for Mr. Snipes a couple weekends ago, certainly was extremely well attended. It was sort of really impressive to hear people just comment for a couple hours about the kind of person he was, and certainly very unique and powerful individual, but the kind of quiet power that you oftentimes does get missed. I think Mr. Rockman was very eloquent in talking about the fact that we should be recognizing those who don't always get the headlines, but yet they do a lot of work. I actually came home from that service and checked my mail, and in it was the Falls Township newsletter that had actually the piece that I had written about Mr. Snipes, and I told him, he mentioned that it was the same day, and I told him, look, I'd like to tell you I planned that, but that was like complete just coincidence that the service was that weekend, and that's the weekend that the newsletter hit. So good timing, Ms. Catalinas. Nice job with that. I know you planned it that way. But somebody did actually, question through an email, wondered why, the Township newsletter didn't have any information about Elcon, and the easy answer was that the information for that newsletter had to be submitted to the printer before any of information from Elcon was submitted. It was before their plans actually came in, and so that was there really wasn't anything to comment on in that newsletter because at that time, we didn't have any idea as to when Elcon was going to submit plans. They didn't tell us ahead of time, hey, we're going to drop them off on this day. They just showed up one day and dropped off plans, and You know, so that's kind of the way, it's the way it works in general. We don't always know when people are coming in to drop things off. So obviously the last several days thinking about world events between New Zealand and the Netherlands has certainly raised a lot of issues about the kind of world we live in. And I can't think of St. Patrick's Day without thinking about the story which I tell often about the trip my parents actually took right around the time of the 9/11 attacks. My parents flew with a group of family members and friends, and sort of one of those organized trips that people who are retired get a chance to go on that I just sort of wish I could go on someday. And it was to Ireland, to travel around Ireland, and they left out of Newark Airport on September 10th, 2001. So they were in Ireland about 24 hours when the terrorist attacks hit. Neither of my parents, actually I think my mother had been out of the country once in her life. My dad had never been out of the country, and so they were not exactly world travelers comfortable being in a foreign country, despite the fact they had friends and aunts and uncles and stuff with them. They immediately, of course, wanted to come home, but that was not an option because aircraft travel was shut down. Some people in the group actually started looking at cruises, leaving Ireland to get to New York and trying to figure out ways to get home, or flying to Canada and renting cars. And the thing that sort of made the trip worthwhile, I think, is something that I experienced certainly at the mosque this Sunday at the service that was held that Mr. Rockman was talking about with the Zubaydah Foundation. The absolute outpouring of love that they received from the people of Ireland that was completely unexpected. They talked about driving on a bus, sort of, the bus tours around Ireland through this picturesque countryside, the kind of countryside you just automatically think of Ireland. You see the countryside, the rock walls, the green hills, the sheep running around. And these little cottages right out of a book with American flags hanging outside the windows. And they couldn't understand, how did somebody in the middle of Ireland get an American flag? And the people, everywhere they went, every hotel, every restaurant, every pub they visited, every location, museum, etc., they visited for I think they're there about 10 days. Just the outpouring of emotion they felt from the people of Ireland to them. They said if they couldn't be in America, they were glad they were in Ireland. And it's, that's kind of spirit. There's a lot of that in the world. More of that than the things we see on the news. And that's something to keep in mind. And even for the people here this evening who weren't always happy with the answers we gave them, we're not gonna lie to you and give you answers that you want to hear just because it makes our job easier. It's not our job to do that. There are certain politicians that think it's their job. It's not our job, and I won't do that as long as I'm here. And I appreciate the support of the people here at this board, and certainly some of the people that came up when we took our break and sort of thanked us for our time. And there is as I said, there's a whole lot of good in the world, and we have to remember that and keep it forefront of our mind and don't let it get pushed out. So thank everybody for their time, their efforts, and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor? Aye.